What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today I want to talk about the head coach, Robert Saleh, after an impressive win 20-14 over the Philadelphia Eagles. The Jets are 3-3 at the bye, and I want to come on here and say that the New York Jets, and specifically Robert Saleh, deserves more credit. Robert Saleh deserves more credit than what he gets from this fan base more often than not. And I get it. There are still some things that are not perfect with Robert Saleh. Nobody is perfect, but I just think for the most part, a big portion of the fan base loves everything Joe Douglas does. And believe me, I am a Joe Douglas fan. I think Joe Douglas is a good GM, but I also think Robert Saleh is a good head coach. And a lot of times Saleh is used as the scapegoat, and I don't think that's fair. And I think he showed yesterday and has shown this season why he is a good coach for the New York Jets. And you know, when you look at this thing, like in this game specifically against the Philadelphia Eagles, led with his backup quarterback in Zach Wilson. He's played pretty much his entire, or coached his entire tenure with the New York Jets with Zach Wilson as his quarterback. He's down 4 of his top 5 corners, if you want to include Justin Hardy. Down 3 starting offensive linemen with Joe Tippmann leaving during the game. And still, his defense forced 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, held the Eagles to 14 points and 0 points in the NFL, in the second half, excuse me. And I get it. There are still some, like, do I love all of his press conferences? No, I don't. I think sometimes he would be better off giving a little bit less. I think sometimes less is more. That's a legitimate criticism. The injury predictions, is some of it gamesmanship? Is some of it just odd that it's so totally off a lot of the times with the injury things? Okay, sure. But that is like so minuscule compared to the other things that he has done really, really well and doesn't get any credit for. How about in-game adjustments? The sign of a good head coach is being able to make adjustments in-game, right? He has done that really well this year. Second half points. Here's what the Jets have done in second halves of this game. Game by game. 3 points against the Buffalo Bills in the second half. 12, no touchdowns, 4 field goals to the Dallas Cowboys. 5 to the New England Patriots. 3, 8, 0. That's 1 touchdown in 6 games in the second half. And you could talk about slow starts and things like that. There's a few reasons for the slow starts, but isn't the whole point of trying to, like, again, be a sign of a good coach is making the adjustments to make your team better as the game goes on? He's done that. How about against what this team has done against 3 of the top quarterbacks in football? Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts. These are all guys who you can make the case year over year should be in the MVP conversation. 3 touchdowns, 8 picks. Again, in 3 games, 3 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Allen had a 62.7 ratings. Mahomes a 63.6. Jalen Hurts a 59.5. I get the defense played 1 bad game this year against the Dallas Cowboys the second week of the season, but every single other week they have been absolutely stellar. Stellar. This is an incredible unit. The defense as a whole, as I said in the post-game video yesterday, I don't want to hear any, overarching themes about the defense being overrated. Like, again, they've had to overcome so much adversity this year, and for this team to be 3-3, which a lot of people would have signed up for a 3-3 start with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. People were saying, best case scenario, 4-2 at the bye. You sign up for 3-3. 2-4 is not ideal, but you can survive it with how the second half of the season goes. They're 3-3 with Zach Wilson at quarter, and issues on the offensive side of the ball. There were issues. Zach Wilson wasn't very good in this game yesterday. Was it his worst game ever? No. Was it his best game ever? Also no. He was fine, but the Jets are winning games with below average quarterback play, which Zach is playing like a backup, which I guess that means he's doing his job, right? Because that's, throw second round or second overall pick out the window for a second and just look at what the reality of the situation is going into this year. Is he was your backup quarterback. You lost your starter 4 plays into the season. You lost the guy you traded for who is supposed to come in here and be the savior 4 plays into the season, instead of your season going off the rails, you are at the same point where most people thought you would be anyway. Most people thought they'd be 3-3 going into the bye week, and that's what they are, with a favorable schedule coming out after the bye. And the pushback that you also get is, oh, this team takes way too many undisciplined penalties. And are there points where there are penalties that are a little bit frustrating? Yeah, every team has them, but they don't take that many penalties. In terms of penalties per game, they're 9th fewest in the NFL. They are a top 10 team in penalties. So that's a good thing. Are some of the roughing the passer calls annoying? Like, the JFM has gotten screwed year over year with the roughing the passer calls. In the game yesterday, there was I almost said Quincy. It's not Quincy. Quinnen Williams had a roughing the passer call. That was one that Robert Saleh, you could see him mouthing on the sideline. That was just stupid. That was a bad decision from Quinnen Williams. They are an aggressive defensive line and aggressive defense, so the penalties is going to come because that's the style of play that they use. But the biggest penalty in the game yesterday was BS. It was ridiculous. The Allen Lazard penalty, that should not be a penalty. He squared him up in the numbers. A blindside block, to me, cannot be someone who is squared up. That should not be the definition of a blindside block. That is silly. That is, you might just play flag football at this point and play patty cake instead of blocking, I guess. I understand player safety. I am for a lot of the initiatives the NFL is taking to improve player safety, but there's obviously a line, and I think that is one that is over the line in not helping anybody or not helping anything. And then I guess there is room for some in-game management improvement, which I said at the top, but the example, or the pushback that I got when I tweeted out that Robert Saleh deserves more credit, he had a really nice coaching performance. Him and Jeff Ulbrich out-coached Nick Sirianni, whose team was in the Super Bowl last year. Take that with a grain of salt or whatever, I guess. But the example that Breece Hall should have went down and should not have scored is ridiculous. He absolutely should have went in the end zone. This was not a situation like Nick Chubb and the Browns last year, because the Eagles still had 2 timeouts. They could have stopped the clock. So unless there was a way for the Jets to wind down the clock to nothing, to 0, then that's a different story. That's a different conversation. But with 2 timeouts, the Eagles could have stopped the clock. And that means they're probably, best case scenario, getting the ball back with 50 to 60 seconds, which that's not a massive difference. If you could stop the clock, don't not go in the end zone. Get the 7 points. That's silly to me. I don't understand why the broadcast and why so many people on Twitter were saying, like, oh my God, just go down. Why? What do you mean? They could stop the clock a couple times, and you want to risk a fumble? You want to risk missing a field goal? I love Greg Zuerlein. I think he's been fantastic. The special teams has been stellar. But I just get in the end zone. That was one that really bothered me that people were upset over. Breece Hall had every right to get in the end zone. That was a smart play because, and guess what? Even if like, oh, well, you're going to put your defense back on the field, they've been great. They haven't given up a point in the second half, and we're creating turnovers at will. And what they do, they force a turnover on downs. So Robert Saleh does deserve more credit. He's done a really, really good job. And I know that people are going to throw the record back in my face, but we can't talk about the record with Joe Douglas, but Robert Saleh gets blamed for the record? Riddle me that one. How does that make sense? It can't be one way for one guy and the other way for another guy. I think they need to be in the same boat when looking at the record. And last year, again, he had his team in a really good spot. They were 7-4. Did they collapse down the stretch? Yeah, but they had the worst quarterback play in the NFL, and the defense was allowing more often than not in these games during the 6-game losing streak, 20 points or less. He has done everything that he has done. He's essentially done with backup level quarterback play. So it's not unfair to say, yeah, I would like to see this guy with a legit quarterback and see how good this team could be, because 3-3 at the bye is awesome. I will absolutely take 3-3 at the bye, but it's also hard not to wonder what this team would look like with Aaron Rodgers. Would they be 5-1 at the bye right now with Aaron Rodgers? So moral of the story is let's give Robert Saleh his well-deserved credit. He has done a really, really, really good job overcoming a lot of adversity with this team and having this team believe in themselves. That is awesome. He deserves the credit. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you next time.